Well, good morning to everybody here in Chanhassen. Let me also bring in our Bush Lake, West Tonka campuses, as well as all those who are tuning in online. And here we are, more than halfway through our series, The Relationship Tool Belt, where we've been looking at dimensions of healthy, good relationships, tools that we can add into our life that'll help those relationships flourish and grow. And you know what kind of dawned on me as I was preparing for this message is I don't think we've yet defined what is a relationship. So I did my best to kind of offer a definition. So a relationship is a connection between two or more entities that shapes, if that's kind of a callback to last week's message, our feelings, actions, and experiences, you could say, are becoming over time. And notice what I've done here is I've kind of widened the scope of what we can have a relationship with. That it could be more than just with another person, even though that has been the emphasis of our series so far. We've talked about good communication practices with people. We've talked about conflict resolution and how we create opportunities for harmony with the people that are around us. We looked at healthy habits, how that can really drive deep human connection. And we've talked about this idea that we could maybe see our lives as a series of circles of relationship that are surrounding us, and those relationships are shaping us. But really, how many know that we really can have a relationship with someone or something more than just another person? My wife kind of tells me all the time, I have another love relationship in my life with our yellow lab, Rosie. So I brought a picture. So you could see her. Yeah, the love is so strong that we allow her, well, at least I allow her on the furniture. And some of you who are with us last week, I talked about when I visit my relatives in South Africa, my voice starts to change. I'm a pet person. Some of you who are pet people know this. My voice changes when I, talk with my dog. And, it's like part Scooby-Doo, part baby talk. It kind of comes together, and that's my dog voice. But isn't that interesting that we can have a relationship with pets, something other than another human being? But how many know that it's possible that we could have a relationship with something inanimate? Think about this. Do you have a relationship with your work? Do you have a relationship with technology? Maybe even very specifically your device, your phone? And if I could, kind of bring back last week's message of relationships don't just surround us, if they shape us in a way, then wouldn't it be kind of fascinating to consider that some of the relationships that surround you and that maybe shape you are relationships you have not with a person, but with things like technology or work or what is everyone's favorite subject in church, money. That you can have a relationship with your money. In fact, look at what Jesus says here in Matthew 6:21. He says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." It's kind of a reversal of sorts of what we think it should say. We think it should say, where my heart is, there my treasure is going to go. Yeah, what I value, what I believe in, that's where I'm going to put my money. But Jesus highlights that our relationship with money can be so powerful that where our money goes, our heart will start to travel with it. Maybe another way to say it, that if a relationship is a connection between two or more entities, between you and something like money, that it can shape your becoming over time. It can move your heart into a different place. Money is shaping you. And maybe like we looked at last week, we're part of that shaping too. Every relationship, I think, is this rhythm of being shaped and being a shaper. And it's why I really do resonate with, I connect with what we call at Westwood our rhythm of life. Some of you have been part of our church. You kind of know we think about our world as one big relationship. That life is best understood as a relationship between God and us as his people. It's the most significant relationship we could ever have. And in that relationship, if I could build out this rhythm of life, God begins that relationship by giving. And we then receive the things that he gives to us. It could be friendship, love, goodness, his presence. And then as we receive, we are invited to kind of be like God and to be a giver ourselves, to give out of what he has given to us back to the world, and to give our friends and our family and even the world around us his gifts of love and presence and goodness. And then God is delighted by that. He is blessed by the things that we decide to give out, and he is honored, and then he decides to give all the more. And I kind of want you to think about this rhythm of life as maybe being true in any relationship that you might have too. I mean, think about you being at the top, and you give to a friend or a family member or to a coworker. You give them your presence, your vulnerability, your heart. And the relationship starts to grow when that person is willing to receive your gift, and when they in turn decide to give you their presence, their vulnerability, their heart. And that rhythm of belonging and becoming nurtures a relationship to the point where it decides to grow. But then think about this rhythm if it gets short-circuited. Think about if you just give and there isn't anything in return. Or if it becomes one way, or the amount of giving and receiving starts to wane. How many know that that relationship starts to change and it starts to drift? And it could feel distant or dysfunctional or even perfunctory. Like, are we even in a relationship anymore? And Jesus, I think, is suggesting that one of the relationships that we should probably pay attention to is the relationship that we have with money. Because just like any relationship we have with another person or a pet, that relationship could be healthy or it could be unhealthy. And that relationship will impact the other relationships that are around us. It's why I think the Bible speaks a lot to the topic of money and possessions and stewardship. Over 2,300 times the Bible speaks about this topic. It's more than topics of prayer, faith, heaven, hell, all combined. If you take all the times the Bible speaks to those four topics, put it all together, it still isn't as many times as it talks about money. Roughly 15% of Jesus' recorded words deal with this topic, and 11 of his 39 parables have this as the integrative motif. It's what he wants to kind of allow us to catch and to see. And as you look at the biblical emphasis on money, again, from Jesus' words all throughout the scriptures, I think it becomes such a major theme because of how shaping of a relationship this can be in our lives, and again, how that shaping effect is spilling over and impacting the other relationships that are around us. And many of us know these stories. You know, think of a family member who may pass away, and they now bequeath money or possessions or investments to family members, and how that can create some tension, some disappointment. It can even reveal sometimes where there might be some cracks or fissures in a family system. Or you may be in a friendship where you may have lent money to somebody, and then that money wasn't paid back in a very timely manner. Or maybe it was never paid back at all, and how that relationship starts to feel a little strained. Or then we get to marriages. And money becomes and is a significant source of tension in a marriage. In fact, 57% of divorced couples cite financial stress as a major factor in their separation. And that's second only to infidelity. There was, in fact, a study that was done by Fidelity, who runs kind of an investment arm business, and they found that 56% of couples, which I thought was so interesting, 57% cite, financial stress or factors as a key reason why they're not together. 56% of couples in this study admit that they don't see eye to eye on financial priorities. Or maybe another way to say it, 56% of couples have a different relationship with money than the other. And for some, the relationship that we have with money can grow, it can develop, it can progress in such a way that it could even be described as another love in your life. The Bible actually speaks to this in Ecclesiastes, one of the wisdom collections of the Bible. It says this: whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This is one of those love relationships that it can take over if we're not careful. And the modern research backs this up. There's a whole body of research in behavioral economics, study after study after study. It says, yep, money has an impact on us. It's impacting our behavior, our emotions, our feelings, even our sense of worth as a person. And going back to that Ecclesiastes verse, the more that we maybe believe that money is going to be the key to our life and to our happiness or to our fulfillment, then the more it starts to exert its control because it's never enough. But is that the kind of relationship that we want with our money? And if that maybe is the relationship we have, is there a way to change it? Well, in order to offer kind of a response to that question, as we've been doing throughout these series, I want to offer you a tool for your tool belt. I actually have 2 of those tools for you today. And this first tool is going to kind of give you a way to consider what relationship with money might you have today. And one of the best ways to maybe answer that question is to maybe for you to think about this. What does money mean to me? Okay, that an introspective question for you maybe just to start to ruminate about. And the first tool is an evaluative tool of sorts that kind of gets to the heart of this question. And in each of these 4 letters of the word cash, which is one of our words for money, C, A, S, and H, I'm going to give you a tool to kind of consider which of these 4 letters maybe do I most connect to? Am I looking to money to be one of these 4 things? Is this what money means to me? So, which of these 4 may best describe you? Are you someone that says, money puts me in charge? And so as such, you're looking to money for a sense of control. Or are you a person that says, no, money proves my success, that I'm doing this thing right? And so are you looking to money for approval? Or are you saying to yourself, no, money is the way to make me feel safe, that we're going to be okay, that if an emergency happens, we're taken care of. And you're looking to money for a sense of security. Or are you saying, no, money helps me enjoy this thing called life, and we're going to have a good time. And as a result, you're kind of looking to money for a sense of happiness. None of these 4 that I list here, none of these desires are wrong. But when money becomes the source or the main source of our sense of control or approval or security or happiness, then it starts to shape us more than serve us. And like we kind of talked about last week, our tendencies around control or approval or security or happiness, those things come from somewhere. For many of us, it could come from our family of origin, how we saw our families handle and manage money. It could come from experiences that we have or times in history that we grew up in. I think about people who grew up during the Great Depression or were trying to get a job during the Great Recession. Those broader experiences probably informed how we think about money, the goals that we have for money, even the fears sometimes that we have if there's not enough money. And whatever your relationship might be today, it'll even amplify as you have more money in your life. And as you get more money, it starts to say, your priorities and your insecurities and your tendencies just start to grow and grow and grow. And it's no wonder money typically sometimes becomes the thing that reveals where we have maybe some below-the-line differences with the people who matter most to us. In fact, maybe I could just speak to the married couples specifically in the room. I think we really do need to prioritize below-the-line conversations about our money so that we can be honest about what we feel about money, what we desire, what we believe about it, in order to ensure that when we have disagreements, that they're being sourced from that side, not just talking above the line of we don't have enough money, and I have an opinion about what money should be or could be. If we can get below the line, I think it can help us, particularly as those who are married, navigate through what usually is a pretty significant source of tension. Because if you're a person that maybe looks to money for a sense of control, right? You're probably going to be the person that maybe is in a marriage relationship, maybe in particular, like you're pretty aware of all the spending and the saving that's happening. Like you keep a close eye on things. Whereas if you're looking to money for approval, you might be a person, regardless if you're in a relationship or not, that says, hey, if there's a money-making venture or opportunity out there, I'm motivated to pursue it and to see what can happen. Or maybe you said, no, I think I identify with money as security. And if you're that person, you're probably not as excited about spending money, but boy, do you start to light up when you could think about saving it, investing it, putting it away, which kind of stands in a little bit of tension or contrast to a person who is looking to it for happiness. Because they're like, oh, wow, I'm looking to have a good time and enjoy these good things that money can buy to make some memories. You know, Annie is a little bit more of the spender in our family, looks to money for that sense of happiness and goodness. I'm a little bit more of the saver, so I like the security side. In fact, if I'm honest, I like the control side a little bit too. And it can be a source of tension in our marriage. And then, you think about, where do these things come from? And I, again, trace the thread back to my earliest years of becoming, and I'm like, oh, here I am, moved from one country to another country. Having control and security, those are nice feelings when you're trying to reestablish your footing in a new place. Whereas, Annie grew up in a family where there's a lot of kids, and if she was like, if I'm going to get something, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to get my allowance, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to go buy that. And so when it comes to our marriage today and we have some money, she's like, we should go on a vacation, and we should enjoy life, and again, make those memories. So again, where might you sit in this evaluative tool? What dimension of cash, C-A-S-H, control, approval, security, happiness, how do you relate to money? And as you consider whatever relationship you might have, is there a better way? Is there a better way? Well, again, I think the Bible does have a lot to say about how we can look to God for the things that oftentimes we look for money to be in our lives. Because again, these are all human needs. To feel like you have some control or some approval or some security or some happiness, God put those in our very heart. Those are good things that God has given to us. But I want you to listen to God's voice as he speaks to those four innate desires of the human heart. Because maybe you're someone that said, yeah, I'm looking to money for control. If that's you today, the wisdom of God says this in Proverbs 16:9. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. The truth is, God is the one in control, not us, not our money. Maybe you are one of the people that said, yeah, it's approval for me. That's what I'm looking to it for. The Apostle Paul writes this in 1 Thessalonians 2:4, for we speak as messengers approved by God to be entrusted with the good news. Our purpose is to please God, not people. And God alone examines the motives of our hearts. The truth is, God is our approver. And he approves us even though he knows everything about us. He searches every depths of our heart. To those who maybe said, yeah, I'm one of those security people. I'm looking to money to just make sure that we've got it all set. Jesus says in Matthew 6:33, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. The truth is, God is our provider. He's going to take care of us, and so we should trust him. Or maybe you were one of those that said, yeah, I'm looking to it for some happiness, for some enjoyment in life. And then the Apostle Paul again writes here in 1 Timothy 6:17, God richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. The truth is that God is the joy giver, and he gives abundantly to his children. God is the one who can fully meet the desires of our heart. And so while money has the potential to move our heart, as Jesus said, it could never fill it. Only God can do that. Only God can fill our heart to overflowing. And then as we see Jesus teach even more about money, you'll see that he doesn't actually say reject it, because he knows money's going to be part of our lives. What Jesus calls us to do is to redeem our relationship with money, versus letting that relationship become so significant that it actually becomes a master in our lives, that we become subservient to it. I mean, look at what Jesus says here in Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Some translations say mammon, which mammon is an Aramaic word. That was kind of the spoken language of Jesus, and it was actually their slang word for money. And we've got a lot of slang words for money today. I mean, we saw cash. Some of you call money Benjamins or moolah or cheddar, or someone told me after service, he was like, I call it the bread. And I'm like, some dough. So we've got a lot of words for money. And notice what Jesus said, though, in those verses. He didn't say it's going to be hard for you to serve two masters. He says, no one can do it. No one. When money becomes an unrestrained relationship in your life, when it becomes your master, it's going to be impossible. Jesus says this. It's going to be impossible for you to relate to God as you ought. And again, I don't think Jesus is making a moral judgment against money. Money is not inherently good or evil. I think Jesus is highlighting the importance of the kind of relationship we can have with it. And as Christians, those of us who want to take Jesus' word seriously, follow in his ways, I think we need to take seriously that even though money doesn't have inherent moral identity, our relationship with money is shaping us. And as such, it will show up in the other relationships that surround us too. Because if money becomes a master in your life and you're looking to it for control or approval or security or happiness, it will never be enough. There'll never be enough of it to completely satisfy those human desires, because God put them in there for him. Only his infinite love and presence and goodness can satisfy the human heart. And he wants us to look to him. He really does. To feel like we do have control or happiness or security or approval, whatever it might be. He wants us to say, jump back into the rhythm of life. Because maybe you're realizing money has become a master in your life. That your relationship with money has developed or progressed in such a way where it's shaping your heart and your other relationships too. And so can I invite you, and truly, like here across all of our campuses, those watching online, one of the ways that we talk about entering into the rhythm of life is we open our hands. And so could I invite you just here to do this? Could you open your hands with me all across our locations? And I just want you to receive what only God can give you today. And so, will you receive his power, which is better than our control? Will you receive his approval, that he calls you a child of God, which is better than any human status? Will you receive his provision for you, which is better than the security of any retirement account balance? Would you receive his joy, truly his joy, which is better than anything money could ever buy you? As we receive that, I pray that God also reminds you that this is not about you needing to feel guilt or shame about what relationship with money you might have or what your relationship looks like relative to another person. This is about you acknowledging where you might be looking to money other than to God for something that he was always meant to be for you. So thanks for opening your hands with me here across all of our campuses just to receive that and to know that God has something for us. He wants to fill our hearts. And if we can admit maybe that we've allowed money or that money somehow has gotten to a place where it becomes a significant relationship in our life, that if we can invite God back in, that God will help us reshape that relationship, that he will help us to redeem that relationship with money. Which leads me to, I told you I have 2 tools for you today. So the second tool for your tool belt out of this message is a practical tool that I think really helps us who are Christians, us who follow Jesus, to approach our relationship with money. And that tool today is going to be 2 lines. Now, if you remember my communication message a few weeks ago, I gave you 1 line. Now I'm giving you 2. And the goal here is for us to try to live between the lines with our money. And this is a tool that really has helped Annie and I in our relationship with money and how we navigate that together. And what it's designed to do is to keep cash, if I put cash back up there, one of our slang words for money, that it could be our source of control or approval or security or happiness. It's a way to keep money within a redemptive lane in our life. In other words, how do we keep money from not growing beyond the top line and kind of slipping below the bottom line? And as that happens in our life, you could kind of see what happens. Our relationship, or the kind of relationship we have with money, starts to take over. But if we could live below the top line, and if we could live above the other line, we can try to manage our relationship with money to a place where, again, it's in a redemptive lane, and it can be what God wants it to be for us, a tool in and of itself. And the 2 broad 3 themes that I see in Scripture, which are going to help inform what I think's at that top line and at that bottom line, is if you look all throughout the Old Testament, all throughout Jesus' words in the New Testament, you'll find that Jesus says, if you want to curtail, the Scriptures say, if you want to curtail money from becoming a master, you have to practice both content stewardship and radical generosity. Those are the 2 kind of boundaries. And so to build this tool out, the first thing that it invites you to do is to live below your means. Live below your means. Listen here to Eugene Peterson's message paraphrase of Paul's inspiring words in 1 Timothy 6. A devout life does bring wealth, and wealth is the rich simplicity of being yourself before God. Since we entered into the world penniless, we will leave it penniless. If we have bread on the table and shoes on our feet, that's enough. Living below your means is how we can experience, I love these words, the rich simplicity of what it means to be ourselves before God, to practice contentment, so that we can keep our relationship with money from growing beyond that line and tempt us to do something that is all around us, to live beyond our means. To truly ask ourselves, what are the boundaries with our money? I think this is what that top line is inviting us to consider, to maybe put a budget together and then to stick to it. Or maybe to ask ourselves this, am I chasing after a lifestyle faster than my income or maybe even my heart can handle? Or am I really feeling anxious? Or do I feel overwhelmed with what feels like mounting debt? Whatever you might experience with this, the consideration to live below your means, I mean, that could mean some radical changes for some of us. But can I encourage you, if you can keep that top line in check, if you can resist the urge for this line to go up and to be wise and a good steward and try to actually live below what your actual means might be, you're allowing that relationship with money to get reshaped under the power of God, to live kind of joyfully within the provision that God has entrusted to you. Which leads to the second line, this bottom line, where the invitation is to give beyond or above even your own comfort. Look here, or listen here to Jesus' words in Luke 21, verses 1 and 4. Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box. And then he saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And he said this to the people around him: "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on." Jesus noticed that this poor widow did something truly uncomfortable. She gave everything away, meaning this, that she was not looking to money to be her source of control or approval or security or happiness. She was looking to God to be those things for her. And that is the power of generosity, maybe even uncomfortable generosity. Because when you can practice that kind of giving, if you keep shrinking the space between these lines, how many know your faith's going to be growing? You're going to look to God for things that sometimes you were looking for money to do. And how many know that even your desire to keep more could actually break as a result of practicing generosity? And if we can keep that bottom line from slipping kind of further and further down, we're redeeming our relationship with money to be what it truly is. It's a gift that God entrusts to us to share with others, a gift that grows our faith when we give uncomfortably, just as God has given to us. And I'll be honest, I really do think that this tool might be the hardest tool in the entire series, because it speaks to one of the least recognized but maybe most significant relationships we have in our lives. But again, if we can reshape and redeem our relationship with money, that's freeing. That could be freeing. Because when we surrender that to God, we're going to grow our faith. We're going to experience greater contentment. We can even grow a more generous heart when we begin to enter into our and we can even enter into our other relationships, realizing, okay, this is what I'm bringing with me. A healthier and more gracious understanding of money will help our other relationships too. So where are you in your relationship with money? And how might God be inviting you to consider how to reshape it and redeem it? To live between the lines. To be within the redemptive lane of God's grace for you. To live below your means rather than beyond. And to give beyond your comfort rather than below it. And these invitations, truly might feel more sacrificial for some rather than others, depending on what part of cash you may most connect with. For those of us who, maybe look to money for a sense of security or control, living below your means, you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. I mean, that's me. I can do that in my sleep. Really. So I need someone like my wife to loosen me up a little bit, and say, we should go on vacation. You should buy some new shoes, which I did, just for this message. And once in a while, we should lean into the fullness of life because, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. But then I can kind of come back into the picture and say, well, it's good for us to stay on budget and to save wisely for the future and not get caught up in the things that we have. And then those of you who may be more like my wife, you look to money and it's like, yeah, this is happiness, this is approval. When I say give beyond your comfort, you're like, yeah, we could do that. And again, Annie pushes me forward in that. And she says, look, we got to be open to God's invitations. Then not all of them are going to be planned and expected. Sometimes they're just going to show up and we need to be ready to respond, which is, I say, that's why I've been saving. We got the money to do that. But notice the invitation is to give even beyond that level of comfort, to be generous with joy in our hearts, even if it costs us. Because sometimes God is trying to do something in us more than he's trying to do something through us when we open our hands to give and give uncomfortably. So can I encourage you this week to ask God to point out to you where your line might be rising or slipping, where you might need to courageously pull back or even push ahead, so you can experience the joy and the freedom of living below your means and giving beyond your comfort, so that God, rather than money, is a core relationship in your life. So you can experience God as your friend rather than money as your master, because your relationship with money is shaping you. And as with any relationship you have, if you invite God into it, he will help you reshape it and redeem it if you follow his ways. If we follow his call to live as content stewards, as faith-filled givers, so that we can be people who have a redeemed relationship with our money, where our hearts are free from its pull, but instead filled with only what God can give us. And so as I close this message here and across all of our campuses, can I invite you one more time to experience this rhythm of life? Open your hands and receive this blessing of only what God can give you. So Lord, you see our hands open, which means our hearts are going to be open too. And we want to receive from you only what you can give us. Only what you can give us. These deep desires to have control or to have approval or security or happiness, they're human desires because you placed that within us, but you want us to look to you to be the only thing that could fill that. And so for those of us, Lord, searching for control, can we lean into your providence? For those of us searching for approval, God, could we just receive right now that you call us a child of God and we're approved unto you? For those of us searching for security, God, can we just be reminded you're our provider? You've got us. And Lord, for those of us who are saying, I want to have some fun, what more joy can there be than to have you in our life? And so, Lord, as we consider our relationship with money, would you help us redeem it and reshape it? Will you help us to know where we might need to live below our means, where we might need to give beyond our comfort, so that we could keep money in its redemptive lane for your honor and for your glory. We pray this now in the name above every name, our teacher, Jesus, our Savior and our friend. Amen.